The stars had always been quiet. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They sent signals into the darkness. They launched probes and telescopes. They hoped and they feared in equal measure. On a cold morning in December, they got their answer. 10,000 ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. They came out of nowhere, dropping out of faster-than-light travel like stones falling into still water. Each ship was massive, some as large as cities, others even bigger. They blocked out the stars behind them, forming a wall of metal and power that stretched across the void. The message came 30 minutes later. Every screen on Earth displayed the same image. A creature appeared, tall and covered in shimmering scales that changed color as it moved. Its eyes were yellow and cold, like a snake watching a mouse. It spoke in a language that no human had ever heard, but somehow the words translated themselves, appearing as text below the alien's face. "I am Admiral Voth of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world has been claimed. You will surrender all weapons. You will accept our rule. You will provide workers and resources as tribute. This is not a request. This is your only option. Species that obey are allowed to live. Species that resist are removed from existence. You have one planetary rotation to comply." The transmission ended. Panic spread across Earth like wildfire. People ran through the streets. Governments held emergency meetings. Religious leaders called for prayer. Military commanders scrambled to understand what they were facing in orbit around Mars. Captain Park Doyon sat in the command chair of the battleship Indomitable. He was 53 years old, with gray hair at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. He had served in the United Earth Defense Force for 30 years. He had fought pirates, stopped terrorist attacks, and once saved an entire colony from a reactor meltdown. Nothing in his career had prepared him for this. His communications officer, Lieutenant Yunhana, turned to face him. She was young, barely 25, with short black hair and hands that shook slightly as she spoke. "Sir, the transmission has been verified. It's real. They're really out there." Doyon nodded slowly. He had seen the ships on his tactical display. 10,000 of them. The entire Earth defense fleet numbered less than 300 vessels, most of them smaller than the alien cruisers. "What do we know about them?" he asked his science officer, a thin man named Baek Jin-ho, pulled up data on the main screen. "Their technology is at least 1,000 years ahead of ours. Maybe more. Their weapons use energy types we don't even have names for. Their shields appear to be impenetrable to our current missiles. So we can't hurt them," Doyon said. "Not with what we have deployed, sir. Not even close." The bridge fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. This was the end. Humanity would either become slaves or be destroyed. There was no third option, or so they believed. Doyon stood up from his chair and walked to the main viewport. He stared out at the distant sun, thinking about his home in Busan, about his wife Gio and their grandchildren. He thought about every human who had ever lived, every dream they had chased, every war they had fought against each other. Then he thought about something else. Something that made him smile. "Lieutenant Yoon," he said calmly, "open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Hannah's fingers flew across her console. "Channel open, sir." The face of Admiral Kong Yoonji appeared on screen. She was a severe woman in her 60s, with iron-gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen too many battles. "Captain Doyon, I assume you've seen our visitors?" "I have, Admiral. 10,000 ships. Very impressive. They've given us 24 hours to surrender, I heard." Doyon's smile grew wider. "I think we should send them a response." Admiral Kang raised an eyebrow. "What kind of response?" "The kind that reminds them who they're dealing with." He turned to face the screen fully. "Admiral requests permission to activate Protocol Omega." The bridge crew exchanged confused looks. Most of them had never heard of Protocol Omega. It wasn't in any training manual. It wasn't discussed in any official meeting. It was humanity's deepest secret, created 50 years ago when the first signs of alien life were detected at the edge of the galaxy. Admiral Kang was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Permission granted. Wake them up, Captain. All of them. Yes, ma'am. Doyen cut the channel and turned to his crew. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. 50 years ago, Earth's governments realized that we might one day face this exact situation. They began building in secret. Hidden bases on the Moon, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, weapons that make our current fleet look like children's toys.
Oh.
Ginho leaned forward. Sir, are you saying we have a secret military? I'm saying we have a lot more than 300 ships. Doyen sat back down in his chair. I'm saying that Earth has been preparing for this day since before most of you were born. And I'm saying that these aliens have made a very serious mistake. What mistake, sir? Hannah asked. Doyen looked at the tactical display at the 10,000 enemy ships waiting in the darkness. His smile never faded. They think we're going to be scared. They think we're going to bow down and beg for mercy. They've conquered 800 species that way. They've never met anything like us. He pressed a button on his armrest, activating a fleet-wide broadcast. All ships, all stations. This is Captain Park Doyen of the Indomitable. As of this moment, Protocol Omega is active. Report to battle stations. Prepare for contact. He closed the channel and leaned back. That's cute, he said softly, looking at the alien fleet. They think they're the predators here. In the cold darkness of space, humanity began to wake up, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Voth stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was the largest ship in the hegemony fleet, a monster of metal and fire that had destroyed entire civilizations. He had commanded it for 200 years. He had never known defeat. Around him, his officers monitored the primitive planet called Earth. They watched the small human ships moving near the red planet. They counted the numbers. They laughed at what they saw. 300 vessels, his tactical commander reported. Most of them are barely armed. This will be the fastest conquest in hegemony history. Voth's scales shifted to a pleased shade of blue. I expected more resistance. The initial scans showed a species that had split the atom and reached their own moon. Usually such species fight harder. They're probably still in shock, Admiral. They will surrender soon. But hours passed and no surrender came. Instead, something strange happened. A single human shuttle left the planet Mars and flew directly toward the hegemony fleet. It sent no weapon signals. It made no aggressive moves. It simply approached, slow and steady, like a child walking toward a giant. What is this? Voth demanded. A shuttle, Admiral. One pilot. No weapons detected? They send one ship to face 10,000? Voth's scales turned confused orange. Bring it aboard. I want to understand these creatures before we destroy them. The shuttle was guided into the Eternal Dominion's main hangar. Hundreds of hegemony soldiers surrounded it, their weapons ready. The door opened, and a single human stepped out. Captain Park Doyen looked around at the alien soldiers with mild interest. He was unarmed, wearing only his dress uniform. He walked forward as if he owned the ship, his boots clicking on the metal floor. A soldier stepped in front of him. You will kneel before the Admiral. Doyen looked up at the massive alien. No, he said simply. I don't think I will. Before the soldier could respond, Voth's voice echoed through the hangar. Bring him to me. He escorted Doyen through the ship. He studied everything he saw with careful eyes. The technology was impressive, certainly. But he noticed other things too. The soldiers moved in rigid formations. They followed exact patterns. They showed no creativity, no flexibility. They were trained to fight enemies who surrendered or died quickly. They had never faced humans. Admiral Voth waited in his throne room, a vast chamber decorated with trophies from 800 conquered worlds. Weapons, flags, skulls, and artifacts filled the walls. Each one represented a species that had fallen before the hegemony. Doyen walked in and stopped in the center of the room. He looked at the trophies with a thoughtful expression. You collect souvenirs? He said. How nice. Voth rose from his throne. He was twice Doyan's height, with claws that could tear through steel. You are brave for a creature so small, or perhaps simply stupid. Have you brought your world surrender? I brought a counteroffer. There is no counteroffer. There is only obedience or death. Doyan reached into his pocket. A dozen weapons pointed at him instantly. He moved slowly, pulling out a small device. He pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed Earth's moon. But something was different. The dark side of the moon, always hidden from Earth's view, was covered with massive structures. Thousands of them, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. What is this? Voth demanded. This is the lunar defense grid. 60,000 rail cannons. Each one can fire a tungsten rod the size of a small car at 25% of light speed. Doyan smiled his calm smile. Your entire fleet is currently within range. We activated the targeting systems about 2 hours ago. Voth's scales went pale. You're bluffing. Our scans showed no such weapons. Your scans showed what we wanted them to show. We've known about the hegemony for 50 years, Admiral. We intercepted your communications when you conquered a species at the edge of this galaxy. We've been preparing ever since. Doyan pressed another button. The hologram changed, showing hundreds of massive ships hidden in asteroid fields, in the ice of distant moons, in places the hegemony had never thought to look. 300 colony ships, each one carries 50,000 humans in frozen sleep. They're scattered across the galaxy in hidden locations. Even if you destroy Earth, which you won't, humanity survives. And we're very good at holding grudges. The room was silent. Voth stared at the human, trying to understand what he was seeing. In 200 years, no conquered species had ever spoken to him like this. This is insanity, he finally said. You cannot defeat us. Even with your hidden weapons, we outnumber you. Numbers don't win wars, Admiral. Will wins wars. And we have something your hegemony has never faced. Doyan stepped closer, showing no fear of the massive alien. We're the species that invented nuclear weapons before we left our own planet. We created biological weapons, chemical weapons, weapons that can poison an entire world. We didn't do it because we needed to. We did it because we were bored and angry. You let that sink in. Here's our counteroffer. Leave right now. Go back to your hegemony and tell them that Earth is not a world to be conquered. Tell them that if they ever come back, we will not just defend ourselves. We will come for them. Every ship, every planet, every member of your ruling council, we will end your entire civilization. Voth's claws tightened on his throne. You would murder billions. We would do whatever it takes to remain free. That's what humans do, Admiral. We don't surrender. We don't kneel. The last time someone tried to conquer all of us, we burned our own cities rather than let them stand under enemy flags. Doyan turned and walked toward the door. You have 1 hour to leave our solar system. After that, we start shooting. And Admiral? He looked back over his shoulder. We don't miss. The door closed behind him. Voth stood in silence, his scales cycling through colors he had never shown before. Fear, confusion, and something new. Something he had not felt in 200 years. Doubt. Admiral Voth made his decision. He would not run from primitives. He would not return to the hegemony as a coward who fled from a species that had only just discovered space travel. His pride would not allow it. All ships advance, he commanded. Destroy the moon installations first, then burn their planet to ash. The hegemony fleet began to move. 10,000 ships, each one a weapon of terrible power, pushed forward into the solar system. They expected the humans to panic. They expected desperate last messages, crying and begging for mercy. What they got was silence. On the dark side of Earth's moon, Lieutenant Commander Cho Yuri sat in the command center of Battery 7. She was 28 years old, fresh from the academy, and had never fired a weapon in real combat. Her hands should have been shaking. They were not. Around her, 300 technicians worked at their stations. Screens showed the approaching enemy fleet in perfect detail. Numbers counted down. Targeting computers locked onto their assigned ships. All batteries report ready, her second-in-command announced. Yuri took a deep breath. She thought about her mother and soul, about her younger brother who wanted to be a pilot, about everyone she had ever known. They were all depending on her now. Open a channel to all batteries, she said. The channel opened. 60,000 weapons waited for her command. This is Lieutenant Commander Cho Yuri. The enemy has entered our range. They think they know what war looks like. They think they understand violence. She paused. Show them how wrong they are? All batteries, fire at will. The moon erupted. 60,000 rail cannons fired at once. The tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to speeds that the hegemony had never seen. They crossed the distance between the moon and the alien fleet in seconds. The first wave hit 300 ships simultaneously. Hegemony shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They could absorb laser fire, deflect plasma beams, survive nuclear explosions. But they had never faced kinetic weapons at this velocity. The tungsten rods punched through shields like they were not there. They tore through armor. They turned ships into clouds of debris and fire. 300 hegemony vessels died in the first 4 seconds. Admiral Worth watched in horror as his tactical display turned red with damage reports. Ships were vanishing. Not damaged, not disabled, vanishing. One moment they existed, the next they were scattered atoms drifting in the void. "Wait!" he roared. "Kinetic weapons, Admiral. They're using physical projectiles at extreme velocity. Our shields cannot stop them, then destroy those cannons. Fire everything." The hegemony fleet returned fire. Massive energy beams lanced toward the moon, burning into its surface. Some of the cannon installations were hit. They exploded in silent flashes. But there were too many of them, spread across too large an area. For every cannon destroyed, 50 more kept firing. And then the second wave came. Captain Park Do-yeon stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the battle unfold. His crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. They were ready. "Enemy fleet is in disarray," Baek Jin-ho reported. "They've lost over 1,000 ships in the first 5 minutes. They're trying to regroup. Don't let them." Do-yeon pressed a button on his console. "All Hornet squadrons, you are clear to launch. From hidden bases on Mars, Europa, Titan, and a dozen other moons, thousands of small ships launched into space. The Hornets were humanity's answer to the massive alien vessels. They were fast, nimble, and armed with nuclear-tipped missiles. Each one was crewed by 2 pilots who had spent years training for exactly this moment. Flight leader. Shinmira pushed her Hornet to maximum speed. She was 31 years old, with sharp eyes and faster reflexes. Her co-pilot, Im Taeson, fed her targeting data from the back seat. "I count 50 cruisers in formation ahead," Taeson said. "They're trying to protect their flagship. Then let's give them something to worry about." Mira armed her missiles. "All wings, follow my lead. We're going straight down their throats." The Hornets dove into the hegemony fleet like angry wasps attacking a bear. They were too small for the big alien weapons to target easily. They moved too fast for the enemy computers to track. They slipped between massive ships, firing missiles at point-blank range. Then racing away before the explosions could catch them, Mira released her first missile at a cruiser. 3 times the size of a football stadium. The nuclear warhead detonated against its hull, tearing a hole the size of a building. Atmosphere and crew vented into space. "Splash 1 cruiser," she called, moving to secondary targets. All around her, Hornets were doing the same. They struck and vanished, struck and vanished, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. The hegemony commanders had never seen tactics like this. Their species fought in organized formations, trading fire until one side was destroyed. This chaos, this madness, was beyond their understanding. Admiral Voth finally gave the order he had never spoken before. "All ships retreat. Get us out of the system, now."
Ow!
But it was too late for many of them. The lunar cannons kept firing. The Hornets kept attacking. Ships that tried to run were cut down from behind. Ships that tried to fight were swarmed and destroyed. Within 6 hours, 4,000 hegemony vessels were debris. The remaining 6,000 fled into faster-than-light travel. Scattering in every direction, Captain Doyen watched them go. His face showed no satisfaction, no joy, only determination. "Lieutenant Yoon," he said quietly, "open a channel to Admiral Kang." Hannah opened the channel. The Admiral's face appeared, looking tired but triumphant.
"Captain."
"We did it. We actually did it. We won the first battle," Doyon corrected. "The war has just begun. They'll come back with more ships. They'll come back angrier and more prepared. We need to take the fight to them before that happens." Admiral Kang nodded slowly. "What do you have in mind?" Doyon looked out at the stars where the enemy had fled. "He came to our home and threatened our families. Now we go to their homes. We break their military. We free every species they've enslaved. And we make sure no one ever threatens Earth again." The Admiral was silent for a moment. Then she smiled, a cold and dangerous smile. "Assemble the fleet, Captain. We're going hunting." The hegemony had never been invaded. In 12,000 years of conquest, no enemy had ever reached their space. They had always been the hunters, never the prey. That was about to change. Captain Park Doyen stood before his crew in the main briefing room of the Indomitable. Behind him, a star map showed hegemony territory, a vast empire spanning hundreds of star systems. Red dots marked military bases, shipyards, and communication centers. "We leave in 6 hours," he said. "Our mission is simple. We break their ability to make war. We target their military, their industry, their command structure. We do not attack civilians. We do not harm those who surrender. We are soldiers, not murderers." A young officer raised her hand. "Sir, how do we fight an empire this large with only 200 ships?" Doyon smiled. "We don't fight fair. We fight smart." The human fleet jumped into hegemony space 3 days later. They appeared without warning at a supply station on the edge of enemy territory. The station was massive, holding enough fuel and ammunition to keep 1,000 ships. It's running for a year. It was destroyed in 8 minutes. The humans struck and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They left no survivors to report what had happened, only wreckage and confusion. 3 days later, they hit a shipyard that built hegemony cruisers. They destroyed the facility, the ships under construction, and the orbital defenses protecting them. Then they disappeared again. The pattern repeated. Com relays went silent. Military academies burned. Weapons factories became craters. Each attack was precise, each target carefully chosen. The humans seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage. This was the work of intelligence officer No So-Yeon. So-Yeon was 35 years old. With a mind like a computer and eyes that missed nothing, she worked from a cramped office aboard the Indomitable, surrounded by screens and data feeds. She analyzed hegemony communications, studied their patrol routes, identified their weak points. "The key to their empire is centralization," she explained to Captain Doyon one evening. "Everything flows through their High Council. Every order, every resource allocation, every military command. If we can isolate their systems from each other, they'll fall apart. How do we do that? We cut their communication lines. Without instant contact with the High Council, local commanders will have to make their own decisions. They're not trained for that. They're trained to follow orders." "Okay." Doyen nodded slowly. "Do it." Over the next month, humanity waged a shadow war against the hegemony. They destroyed relay stations, severed data links, and jammed transmissions. Systems that had communicated instantly for thousands of years suddenly went silent. Governors who had always received orders from above now faced chaos without guidance. Some panicked, some tried to flee, and some began to question why they were loyal to the hegemony at all. The first defection came from a species called the Wraithen. They were small, furry creatures who had been conquered 5,000 years ago. They served as engineers and technicians throughout the hegemony, maintaining ships and systems that their masters didn't understand. A Wraithen leader contacted the human fleet through a hidden channel. "We wish to join you," he said. "The hegemony has used us as slaves for generations. We want to be free. Doyen met with him personally. The Rathan was nervous, trembling as he faced the human captain. "What do you want in return?" he asked. "Freedom for your people," Diane answered. "Help us with intelligence and technical support. When this war ends, you govern yourselves. No human will rule over you." The Rathine's eyes went wide. "You do not want tribute? You do not want servants? We want allies, partners, friends, if possible." Doyen extended his hand. "Humanity doesn't believe in empires. We believe in cooperation." The Rathan stared at the offered hand. Then, slowly, he reached out and took it. Word spread quickly. Other conquered species began to reach out. Some offered information. Some offered sabotage. Some simply stopped following hegemony orders and waited to see what would happen. Within 3 months, 12 species had openly joined humanity's cause. Dozens more were working secretly against their masters. The hegemony, which had seemed invincible, was crumbling from within. Admiral Voth watched his empire collapse from his throne room on the hegemony homeworld. He had lost half his remaining fleet. His supply lines were broken. His allies were deserting. And the humans kept coming, relentless and unstoppable. He demanded of his advisors, "How can one species do this to us?" No one had an answer. The final battle came at the hegemony capital system. Voth had gathered every ship he had left, 3,000 vessels protecting his homeworld. He knew this was his last chance. If he lost here, everything was over. The human fleet arrived at dawn, 200 ships against 3,000. They should have been destroyed instantly. They were not. Captain Shin Myra led the first wave. She had been promoted after the Battle of Earth, given command of her own squadron. Now she flew at the front of humanity's spear, her hornet racing toward the enemy line. "All wings, follow my lead. We break their formation, we break their spirit." The hornets tore into the hegemony fleet. Behind them, the human battleships opened fire with their rail cannons. The enemy shields, still useless against kinetic weapons, failed under the assault. But this time, the hegemony fought back. They had learned. Their ships spread out, making harder targets. Their weapons adapted, tracking the small human fighters more effectively. Human ships began to take damage. Some were destroyed. The battle lasted 12 hours. Both sides lost hundreds of vessels. The space around the hegemony homeworld became a graveyard of broken ships and drifting bodies. In the end, humanity won. But barely. Captain Doyen's ship took position above the hegemony homeworld. Below him, billions of aliens looked up at the human vessels in their sky. They had never known defeat. They had never known fear. Now they knew both. Doyen opened a channel to Admiral Voth. "It's over," he said. "You can surrender and face justice for your crimes. Or we can keep fighting until there's nothing left. Your choice." Voth appeared on screen. He looked old now, broken. His scales had lost their color. His eyes had lost their fire. "You would destroy us completely." "No. We would end your government, your military, your ability to threaten others. Your people would live. They would govern themselves. They would have to earn their place in the galaxy instead of taking it by force." Voth was silent for a long moment. "And if I refuse?" Doyen's face hardened. "Then I demonstrate what humans do to those who refuse to stop hurting others. I don't think you'll like it." The silence stretched on. Finally, Voth lowered his head. "We surrender." The war was over. But the work was just beginning. In the months after the hegemony surrender, humanity faced a challenge unlike any in their history. They had not just won a battle, they had broken an empire. Now they had to decide what would replace it. Admiral Kong Yunji became humanity's voice to the galaxy. She traveled from system to system, meeting with the leaders of newly freed species. She listened to their stories. She heard about centuries of oppression, stolen resources, and murdered dreams, and she made the same promise to each of them. "Humanity does not want to rule you. We want to work with you." Many did not believe her at first. They had known nothing but masters and slaves. The idea of equals working together seemed impossible. But slowly, trust began to build. Captain Park Do-yeon retired from active service 6 months after the war ended. He passed command of the Indomitable to Captain Shin Myra, who had proven herself 100 times over during the campaign. She was young, brilliant, and respected by every crew member who served under her. "You earned this," Do-yeon told her on the day of the ceremony. "The Indomitable is in good hands." Myra saluted. "I'll try to live up to your example, sir. Don't live up to my example. Create your own. That's what makes a great captain." The Galactic Assembly was formed 1 year after the hegemony fell. 93 species sent representatives to a great station built in neutral space. They came from every corner of the galaxy, beings of every shape and size. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some saw in light, others in sound. But they all shared one thing: they were free. Admiral Kang addressed the assembly on its opening day. She stood at the podium, looking out at creatures she never could have imagined a few years ago. Her voice was calm and steady. "We did not seek this war," she began. "Humanity wanted only to explore the stars, to discover new worlds and new knowledge. When the hegemony came to our system, we were given a simple choice: kneel or die." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We chose neither. We chose to fight, and we did not fight for power or glory. We fought because freedom is worth any price. We fought because no species should live under the rule of another." She gestured to the assembled representatives. "Now we build something new. Not an empire based on fear and conquest, but an alliance based on cooperation and mutual respect. Every species here has an equal voice. Every species here controls its own destiny. And if anyone threatens that freedom, they will face not just humanity, but all of us together." The assembly erupted in approval. Creatures with no ability to clap still found ways to express their agreement. The sound filled the great chamber like a wave. It was the beginning of a new age. Do-yeon did not attend the ceremony. He had already returned to Earth, to his home in Busan. He sat on the beach with his wife Geo. Watching the sun set over the water, their grandchildren played in the sand nearby, laughing and shouting as children always do. "You should have been there," Geo said. "They wanted you to speak. Yoonji does it better than I ever could." Do-yeon took his wife's hand. "Besides, I've had enough of speeches and ceremonies. I just want to be here, with you, watching them grow up." Geo smiled. "The most famous human in history, and he wants to be a retired grandfather. The most famous human got lucky." Do-yeon looked at the ocean, thinking about everything that had happened. We all got lucky. It could have ended so differently. A reporter found him 3 days later. She was young and eager, working for a major news network. She wanted the definitive interview with the man who had saved humanity. Do-yeon agreed reluctantly. They sat on his porch, looking out at the sea. The camera recorded everything. "Captain Do-yeon," the reporter began, "when you faced the hegemony fleet, 10,000 ships against 300, were you afraid?" Do-yeon considered the question carefully. "No," he said finally. "Fear is for species that think they might lose. We knew what we were." "We've always known. What do you mean?" "Humans have been fighting against impossible odds since we first walked upright. We fought predators bigger and stronger than us. We fought nature itself. We fought each other, often over foolish things, but we also fought for freedom, for justice, for the right to live as we choose." He turned to look at the camera. The hegemony thought they knew what we were. They looked at our small planet and our tiny fleet and saw an easy conquest. They didn't understand that every human alive carries the spirit of every human who ever lived. We carry our ancestors' courage, their stubbornness, their absolute refusal to surrender. So you were never worried about losing." Do-yeon laughed softly. "I was worried about the price we'd pay. I knew we would win because I knew what we were capable of. But I also knew that victory would cost lives. Good people died in that war. Friends of mine, people I was responsible for." His eyes grew distant. "The real victory isn't that we beat the hegemony. The real victory is what comes next. We proved that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. We proved that cooperation is stronger than domination. We gave every species in this galaxy a chance to determine its own future. The reporter looked at her notes. One final question. What do you want people to remember about this time? Doyon thought about it. Then he smiled, the same calm smile he had worn when facing Admiral Voth. I want them to remember that we didn't conquer anyone. We didn't become the new hegemony. We had the power to rule the galaxy, and we chose not to. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us human. The interview ended. The reporter left. Doyon went back to his quiet life, watching sunsets and playing with his grandchildren. That evening, his youngest granddaughter climbed into his lap. "Grandpa, tell us the story again." He laughed and pulled her close. "Which story?" "The one about the aliens. When they came and tried to tell everyone what to do?" Doyon looked at his wife. Gio nodded with a smile. "All right," he said. So there we were, facing the entire hegemony fleet. 10,000 ships, the biggest armada anyone had ever seen. And they sent us a message demanding our surrender. "And what did you say?" the children asked together. Doyon grinned. I said, "That's cute." The children laughed. Gio laughed. And somewhere out among the stars, 93 species began building a future together. A future that existed because one species had refused to kneel. The galaxy had warned Earth to obey. Earth had smiled and changed everything, and the story was only beginning.